First Contact Paradigm. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the helm of the ESS Venture, her weathered hands gripping the tactical rail as three massive Zenith Collective warships emerged from hyperspace. Their crystalline vessels dwarfed her fleet of 6 Earth ships, each alien craft gleaming like a carved diamond against the backdrop of stars. This would be humanity's first major engagement since achieving faster-than-light travel, and the outcome would shape Earth's future in the galactic community. "They're broadcasting again, Commander," Lieutenant Park announced from his station, his voice steady despite the tension. "The Collective's admiral says our primitive vessels should surrender now to avoid unnecessary destruction." Vasquez allowed herself a slight smirk. "Primitive, are we? Well, let's show them what Earth's primitives learned from 5,000 years of warfare." She opened a channel to her fleet. "All ships, execute maneuver Helios." The human vessels broke formation, but not in the scattered retreat the Zenith expected. Instead, they split into precise pairs, each duo moving in seemingly erratic patterns that made the alien targeting systems struggle to maintain locks. The massive Zenith warships maintained their traditional arrow formation, their crystalline structures pulsing with building energy. "Energy spike detected," called out Lieutenant Rivera from Tactical. "Their main weapons are charging, reading unprecedented power levels." "Perfect," Vasquez replied, her dark eyes focused on the holographic display. "Deploy the quantum field generators." From each human ship, invisible fields of quantum-entangled particles expanded outward, creating a web of interconnected energy that seemed to serve no purpose to the watching Zenith commanders. Their massive ships charged their primary weapons, beams of concentrated plasma that could slice through planetary crusts. The Zenith fired. But instead of destroying the human vessels, something unprecedented happened. The quantum fields captured the energy, the entangled particles creating corridors of controlled chaos that redirected the massive power output. Vasquez's fleet had turned space itself into a series of mirrors and lenses. "Fields at maximum capacity," Rivera reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "Ready to redistribute. Target their propulsion systems," Vasquez ordered. "Let's see how well they fight when they can't maneuver." The quantum fields released the captured energy in precise bursts, focusing the Zenith's own weapon power back at them. Their crystalline shields, designed to deflect frontal energy attacks, weren't prepared for their own weapons striking from multiple vectors simultaneously. The massive ship's engines sputtered and died, leaving them drifting in space. "Direct hits confirmed," Park announced. "Their engines are offline, and their secondary systems are failing." Vasquez opened a channel to the Zenith flagship. "This is Commander Vasquez of the Earth Fleet. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are safe. I suggest we discuss terms that don't involve the word primitive." The response came swiftly, the translator struggling to convey the mixture of shock and grudging respect in the Zenith Admiral's harmonic voice. "Our combat computers calculated a 0% chance of success for your fleet. This outcome should have been impossible." "That's the problem with relying too heavily on computers and rigid doctrine," Vasquez replied. "They can only account for what they've seen before. Humanity has spent millennia fighting ourselves, constantly adapting, never settling for a single approach, because we learned that predictability means death." As recovery operations began, Vasquez received a private transmission from the Zenith Admiral. "You used our own power against us. No species has ever attempted such tactical improvisation. It defies all established combat protocols." "That's precisely why it worked," Vasquez explained. "In our history, survival didn't favor the strongest or best equipped, but those who could adapt and turn disadvantages into advantages. We call it asymmetrical warfare, using an enemy's strength against them." The battle would become known throughout the galaxy as the Quantum Mirror Gambit, marking humanity's dramatic entrance onto the galactic stage. It proved that innovation and adaptability could overcome even the most overwhelming technological advantages. Later that day, as Vasquez filed her report, her communications officer interrupted with urgent news. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions from multiple species in nearby sectors. They're requesting information about our combat techniques." Vasquez laughed, the sound carrying both pride and caution. "Tell them we'll be happy to explain our doctrine as soon as we figure out what it is ourselves. Though they might be better off learning how to think differently rather than copying our specific tactics." She turned to look at the disheveled zenith vessels through the bridge viewport, their crystalline structures now dimmed but still magnificent. Humanity had just demonstrated that they weren't merely joining the galactic community. They were going to revolutionize it. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them Phase 1 of First Contact was successful, but they should prepare for Phase 2. At her officer's questioning look, she smiled. "Teaching the galaxy that the most powerful weapon isn't technology or numbers, but the ability to think creatively when everything is on the line." The quantum mirror gambit would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy, not for its specific tactics, which were soon countered, but for what it represented. The moment when rigid military doctrine began to give way to adaptive warfare. Humanity had brought chaos to the ordered galaxy, and in doing so, had made it stronger. The adaptive edge. High strategist Anxelera floated in her analysis chamber aboard the Meridian Alliance's premier military research station, her bioluminescent tentacles pulsing with frustration as she studied the holographic battle recordings surrounding her. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected countless replays of human combat engagements, each showing different tactics, different approaches, different solutions to similar problems. "This defies all logical analysis," she announced to her research team. Her senior analyst, a cybernetically enhanced Forkai named Tech 7, manipulated the control interface with his metallic appendages, bringing forward several key battles for comparison. "Agreed, High Strategist. We've analyzed 147 distinct human combat engagements across 12 star systems. There's no consistent pattern, no standardized response protocols." Tech 7's optical sensors whirred as they focused on a particular engagement. "Look at this encounter with the Swarm Collective." The hologram expanded, showing a human fleet seemingly trapped by superior numbers. But instead of fighting or fleeing, the human ships had released thousands of small autonomous drones that mimicked their energy signatures. The swarm's hive mind targeting systems, overwhelmed by the sudden multiplication of potential threats, had suffered a cascading failure. "Now compare that to their defense of the Proxima colonies," Anxelera commanded, her tentacles manipulating another recording. This time, the human ships had linked their engines together, creating a makeshift gravity well that pulled an attacking force into a carefully prepared minefield. "Different threats, different solutions," Tech 7 observed. "They never fight the same way twice." "Which makes them impossible to predict," Anxelera concluded. A soft chime announced the arrival of Fleet Master Janfar, his crystalline form catching the light from the displays. "The Council demands progress," Janfar announced without preamble. The Zenith Collective's defeat was merely the beginning. 3 more species have reported successful human defensive actions, each using completely different methods. We must understand their warfare doctrine. Anxelera's bioluminescence shifted to a pattern indicating both amusement and revelation. "That's just it, Fleet Master. Their doctrine is not having a doctrine. Look at this." She gestured to a new hologram, showing footage from a captured human training simulation. The simulation presented human crews with impossible scenarios. Outnumbered, outgunned, with critical systems failing. But instead of teaching standard responses, the program rewarded creative solutions and unexpected tactics. Some crews used sensor ghosts to confuse enemy targeting. Others converted their ships' waste disposal systems into improvised weapons. One particularly creative team had even reprogrammed their ship's artificial gravity to use it as a weapon. "They don't drill their personnel in perfect formations or ideal attack patterns," Anxelera explained. "They train them to think creatively, to see every tool, every disadvantage, every piece of debris as a potential weapon or solution." That's not warfare, Janthar protested, his crystalline features shifting in confusion. That's chaos. Precisely, Tech 7 interjected, and chaos, properly applied, is the most powerful force in the universe. The humans haven't survived and thrived because they're stronger or more advanced. They've succeeded because they're comfortable with chaos, with uncertainty. They don't try to impose perfect order on an imperfect universe. They adapt to it. Anksulara brought up the recording of the quantum mirror gambit. This battle wasn't won because humans had superior technology or numbers. It was won because they looked at quantum fields, which every species uses for communication, and asked, what else can we do with this? Their strength isn't in having the perfect response to every situation. It's in their ability to create new responses on the fly. Janthar's crystalline form dimmed slightly as he processed this information. The Council won't accept this analysis. They want weaknesses, patterns we can exploit. Then tell them this. Anksulara's tentacles pulsed with emphasis. The human's greatest weakness is that they're willing to take risks that more established species wouldn't consider. Their solutions sometimes fail spectacularly. But that same trait, she gestured at the surrounding battle footage, that's what lets them achieve the impossible. As Janthar departed to make his report, Tech 7 turned to his superior. High strategist, I've been analyzing statistical probabilities. These recordings only show what humans can achieve with borrowed or adapted technology, once they begin developing their own. Precisely why I'm submitting a different recommendation to the Council, Anksulara interrupted. We need to establish closer ties with Earth immediately. Not just diplomatic relations, but cultural and technological exchange programs. You want to give them access to our technology. Tech 7's optical sensors pulsed in surprise. I want to give them access to our perspective, and gain access to theirs in return. Anksulara's bioluminescence shifted to a pattern of determined conviction. Because the galaxy is about to learn what humans have known all along. The most powerful weapon isn't the biggest ship or the strongest shield. It's the ability to see past what we think is possible and find solutions where none should exist. As if to emphasize her point, a new alert flashed across their screens. Another human fleet had just defeated a hive mind incursion using nothing but modified mining equipment and improvised electromagnetic pulses. Anksulara allowed herself a small gesture of satisfaction. Send word to the Council, she ordered. Tell them we don't need to understand human combat doctrine. We need to understand that their greatest weapon isn't their ships or their technology. It's their minds. And those minds are either going to help reshape the galaxy's approach to warfare, or they're going to reshape it without us. Evolution of combat. Captain Marcus Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the EFs as intrepid as the massive joint species fleet assembled for the first Galactic combat integration exercise. Ships from 7 different species formed their traditional formations, the crystalline vessels of the Zenith Collective arranging themselves in perfect geometric patterns, the organic ships of the Meridian Alliance clustering like schools of fish, and the cybernetic vessels of the Vorkai positioning themselves in mathematically precise intervals. The human contingent, just 5 ships strong, looked almost absurdly small among the gathered armada. But after the events of the past year, no one underestimated Earth's forces anymore. All ships report ready for exercise commencement, Lieutenant Wei announced from her communication station. The Meridian flagship is requesting our initial formation pattern. Rodriguez smiled. Tell them we'll be implementing Random Pattern Alpha. Sir, Wei's lips twitched. Random Pattern Alpha isn't in any of the shared tactical databases. That's because I just made it up, Rodriguez replied. Let's see how they handle a little chaos right from the start. Before Wei could respond, the ship's AI cut in with an urgent alert. Multiple unidentified vessels emerging from hyperspace. Energy signatures match no known species in our database. The training exercise forgotten. Rodriguez watched as dark, angular ships materialized at the edge of the system. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them look like tears in the fabric of space itself. "We're receiving a transmission," Wei reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "Universal translators are having trouble." "Wait, got it. Your species have been deemed unworthy of ascension. Submit to purification or face extinction." "Charming," Rodriguez muttered. "How many ships?" 37, Captain. Each approximately twice the size of our largest vessels. Energy readings are off the charts." Rodriguez opened a channel to the assembled fleet. "This is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Fleet. I suggest we postpone our training exercise and deal with our uninvited guests first." The response came from High Commander Ancilera of the Meridian Alliance. "Agreed, Captain. However, our combined fleet has never fought together outside of simulations. We have no established protocols for multi-species combat coordination." "Then maybe it's time we all learn to think like humans," Rodriguez replied. "All ships, this is no longer a training exercise. This is Combat Integration Lesson 1. Improvisation." Over the next hour, Rodriguez coordinated what would later be called the most chaotic and effective multi-species defense in galactic history. He paired Zenith collective crystalline ships with Vorkai cybernetic vessels, using their combined technologies to create interference patterns that confused the enemy's targeting systems. Meridian organic ships linked their neural networks with human quantum computers, achieving unprecedented levels of tactical coordination. When the unknown enemy launched what looked like conventional missiles, Rodriguez had the fleet's engineers work together to modify their ship's shields on the fly. The Zenith's crystalline technology combined with human quantum field generators created a new type of defensive screen that not only blocked the missiles, but reflected their energy back as weaponized feedback loops. "They're adapting to our countermeasures," Wei reported as the battle entered its second hour. "Their weapons are changing frequency faster than we can modify our defenses." Rodriguez studied the tactical display, watching the enemy ships shift their attack patterns. Then he noticed something about their movements, a pattern hidden in the chaos. "They're using algorithms," he announced. "Advanced ones, but still predictable if you know what to look for. Lieutenant Wei, send this targeting data to all ships. Tell them to fire exactly 3 seconds after their targeting computers say they have a solution." "But that would mean deliberately missing our shots," Wei protested. "Exactly. Because their evasion patterns are based on predicting where we'll fire. So let's show them something their algorithms can't handle: intentional error." The strategy worked. The enemy ships, their predictive algorithms confused by the deliberately incorrect targeting, began to lose their perfect coordination. In the chaos that followed, the combined fleet pressed their advantage, using tactics that changed with every passing minute. When it was over, the mysterious enemy fled, leaving behind only debris and a lot of questions. As the fleet regrouped, Rodriguez received transmissions from every species commanders. "Your tactics defied all logic," the Zenith commander stated. "You had us deliberately make mistakes." "Because perfect logic can be predicted," Rodriguez explained. "Sometimes the best move is the one that makes the least sense." High Commander Ancilera's transmission carried tones of both amusement and admiration. "You turned our entire fleet into a human combat unit. Adaptive, unpredictable, comfortable with chaos." "Not exactly," Rodriguez corrected. "I showed you how to combine your existing strengths with human flexibility. The Zenith's perfect formations became perfect timing for synchronized attacks. The Meridian's organic neural networks adapted faster than any computer. The Vorkay's cybernetic precision found patterns in the chaos. We didn't abandon your ways of fighting. We evolved them." As the fleet began repair operations, Rodriguez looked out at the assembled ships. The perfect formations were gone, replaced by fluid, adaptive groupings that shifted based on need rather than tradition. In just one battle, centuries of rigid military doctrine had begun to transform. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered. "Tell them Combat Integration Lesson 2 begins in 1 hour. Topic: How to make up tactics on the fly without making it look like you're making them up." The battle would become known as the Chaos Gambit, marking the day when the galaxy's military forces began to truly understand that evolution, in tactics as in nature, favored those who could adapt. The Strategic Revolution. Grand Admiral Thexphora stood before the Galactic Military Council, her holographic form projected into the ancient chamber where representatives from 23 spacefaring civilizations gathered. The crystalline walls reflected the light from dozens of different species, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that had once represented the perfect order of galactic combat doctrine. Now, 6 months after the Chaos Gambit, that order was being deliberately dismantled. The integration of human tactical philosophy has progressed faster than anticipated, she reported, bringing up a holographic display of recent battle statistics. Species that adopt adaptive combat protocols show a 47% increase in combat effectiveness against conventional forces and an 82% increase against previously unknown threats. Supreme Commander Kellyan of the Zenith Collective raised his crystalline form in protest. But at what cost? Our perfect formations, refined over millennia. We're perfect targets, interrupted Captain James Chen of Earth's diplomatic corps, attending his first council meeting. Your formations were beautiful, effective against known threats, and completely predictable to any force that studied them long enough. Before Kellyan could respond, High Strategist Angcelera's bioluminescent form pulsed with agreement. The human's assessment is correct. My analysis team has confirmed that our traditional doctrine had become a liability. We had mistaken routine for readiness. Thexphora brought up footage from recent combat exercises. The displays showed ships from different species practicing what had become known as fluid formation combat. Vessels moved in seemingly random patterns that nonetheless maintained perfect tactical coverage, like a school of fish evading a predator. What you're seeing is not chaos, she explained. It's controlled adaptation. We're not abandoning our species' strengths, we're learning to apply them flexibly. She highlighted several examples. Zenith crystalline ships using their perfect geometric formations as a foundation for unpredictable attack patterns. Meridian organic vessels combining their neural networks with randomized tactical algorithms. Vorkai cybernetic ships introducing controlled variables into their targeting systems. The results speak for themselves, Captain Chen added. When the Dark Fleet attacked the Proxima sector last week, the Combined Defense Force adapted to their tactics in real time. A year ago, we would have spent precious hours trying to form the perfect response. The mention of the Dark Fleet, the mysterious enemy that had appeared during the Chaos Gambit, brought a solemn mood to the chamber. Their attacks had become more frequent, testing the galaxy's new defensive strategies. There's something else, Angcelera announced, her tentacles forming patterns of concerned urgency. My analysis suggests the Dark Fleet is itself adapting, learning from each encounter. They're attempting to mirror our newfound flexibility. Then we'll need to evolve faster than they can copy, Chen replied. He turned to address the entire council. On Earth, we have a saying. The only constant is change. For millennia, your civilizations have tried to create perfect, unchanging combat doctrine. But the universe itself is chaos and change. True strength isn't in resisting that chaos. It's in learning to flow with it, to use it. Thexphora nodded in agreement, which is why I'm proposing the establishment of the first Galactic Adaptive Combat Academy. A place where all our species can learn from each other, combining our unique strengths with human tactical flexibility. The chamber erupted in discussion, but not in the way it might have a year ago. Instead of rigid protocols and formal debate, representatives freely exchanged ideas, proposed modifications, suggested improvements. The council itself was evolving. Look at them, Chen whispered to Angcelera. 6 months ago, this chamber was like a choreographed dance. Now it's more like a jazz improvisation session. I'm not familiar with jazz, Angcelera replied, her bioluminescence showing curiosity. It's a form of music where the musicians have a basic structure but improvise around it, responding to each other in real time. Each player brings their own strength, their own style, but they work together to create something greater than any could achieve alone. Like your combat doctrine that isn't a doctrine, she observed. Exactly. And like jazz, it's not about abandoning structure entirely. It's about finding the perfect balance between order and chaos. As the council session continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. A Zenith fleet had repelled raiders using tactics that would have been considered heretical a year ago. A Meridian defense force had protected a colony by improvising weapons from atmospheric processing equipment. A Vorkai patrol had defeated pirates by introducing random variables into their typically perfect attack patterns. The galaxy was changing, evolving. The rigid hierarchies and perfect formations that had defined combat for millennia were giving way to something new, a fusion of alien technology and human adaptability, of ancient strength and new thinking. "There's a human phrase," Chen told the council as the session drew to a close. "We say that the only thing worse than fighting the last war is fighting the perfect war. Because perfect wars only exist in simulations. Real combat is messy, chaotic, and constantly evolving. And now finally, so are we." As the representatives filed out, Vexvora approached Chen with a question that had been bothering her. "Captain, does it concern you that we're all learning to fight like humans?" Chen smiled. "We're not teaching you to fight like humans, Admiral. We're teaching you to think like humans. The fighting part, that's still uniquely yours. We're just showing you how to do it, creatively. Unity through chaos." The massive fleet gathered at the edge of the Arcturus sector represented every spacefaring species in known space. Admiral Maya Patel of Earth Fleet stood on the bridge of the EFSS Prometheus, watching as over 1,000 ships moved in fluid, ever-changing formations. The Dark Fleet had finally revealed its true strength, a force of 300 vessels approaching from the galactic core, each one larger and more powerful than anything the Alliance had faced before. "All fleet commanders report ready," Lieutenant Jackson announced from Tactical. "The Zenith crystalline ships have synchronized with our quantum field generators. Meridian neural networks are linked with Vorkai targeting systems. All ships are implementing randomized combat protocols." Patel nodded, her expression calm despite the weight of command. 6 months of joint training at the Galactic Adaptive Combat Academy had prepared them for this moment. Or so they hoped. "The Dark Fleet is broadcasting," Jackson reported. "Same message as always. Submit to purification or face extinction." "Open a channel to all ships," Patel ordered. "This is Admiral Patel. 1 year ago, we were separate species with rigid doctrines and perfect formations. Today, we are one fleet, united not by uniformity but by our diversity. Each of us brings unique strengths, and together we have learned to combine them in ways our enemies cannot predict. Today, we show the Dark Fleet that evolution favors the adaptive." The enemy struck first, their dark ships launching waves of energy that seemed to devour light itself. But the Alliance was ready. Zenith crystalline vessels, their perfect geometric formations now used as focusing arrays, channeled the attack through quantum fields generated by Earth ships. Meridian organic vessels processed the energy through their neural networks, analyzing its patterns faster than any computer. "Pattern analysis complete," announced High Commander Ancilera through the fleet channel. "Their weapons operate on multi-dimensional frequencies. Single-spectrum defenses will fail." "Then let's show them something new," Patel responded. "All ships, execute Symphony Protocol." Like a massive orchestra playing jazz, each species' ships began contributing their unique strengths to a complex, ever-changing defense. Vorkai cybernetic vessels calculated precise timing, allowing ships to weave between enemy attacks. Zenith crystal technology refracted and redirected energy weapons. Human quantum fields created unexpected vectors of attack. "They're adapting to our patterns," Jackson warned as the battle entered its second hour. "Their artificial intelligence is learning our strategies faster than we can implement them." Patel smiled. "Then it's time for the true test of our new doctrine. All ships, Initiative mode active. You all know your strengths. Use them creatively. No more coordinated patterns. Show them what true adaptation looks like. What followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. Each ship, each squadron began fighting in its own unique way while maintaining loose tactical coordination. The Dark Fleet's adaptive AI couldn't predict strategies that were being invented on the fly by 1,000 different commanders. A group of Meridian ships linked their organic technology with human quantum fields to create temporary wormholes, allowing Zenith vessels to strike from impossible angles. Vorkai cybernetic ships introduced controlled chaos into their targeting algorithms, achieving accuracy that pure precision could never match. Human vessels demonstrated techniques that seemed to defy physics, using the complex gravitational interactions of the battlefield itself as weapons. Their fleet formation is breaking down, Jackson reported excitedly. They can't maintain coherence against so many unpredictable attack vectors. Press the advantage, Paddle ordered. All ships, execute your most creative solutions. Show them why rigid perfection always falls to flexible innovation. The Dark Fleet's adaptive AI, programmed to find and counter patterns, began to suffer cascading failures as it tried to predict and counter strategies that were being created and discarded moment by moment. Ships that had evolved to counter any known tactic found themselves facing thousands of unknown ones simultaneously. When it was over, the remaining Dark Fleet vessels flowed into hyperspace, leaving behind a battlefield that resembled abstract art more than traditional combat. As the Alliance fleet regrouped, messages flooded in from every species' commanders. We fought without formation, without perfect order, the Zenith commander observed, and achieved something more perfect than any predetermined strategy. Like jazz, Paddle replied, remembering Captain Chen's analogy from the council meeting. Each of us played our own part, but together we created something greater than any single approach could achieve. High Commander Enxlera's transmission carried tones of both exhaustion and triumph. The Dark Fleet's artificial intelligence was designed to counter perfect strategies. Instead, it faced something it could never adapt to: genuine creativity. As debris from the battle cooled in space, Paddle looked out at the assembled fleet. Ships of every species had taken damage, but they had won. More importantly, they had proven that the galaxy's new approach to warfare wasn't just viable, it was superior. Send a message to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them the greatest battle in galactic history was won not by the strongest weapons or the most advanced technology, but by the one force that can never be fully predicted or countered: the power of creative thought. Later, as the fleet began its journey home, Paddle received a private message from the Galactic Military Council. They were officially renaming the Galactic Adaptive Combat Academy. Its new name, the Symphony Institute, a place where the ordered music of warfare would forever be played with the improvisation of jazz. The battle would become known as the Symphony of Chaos, marking not just a military victory, but a fundamental shift in how intelligent life approached the concept of conflict. The galaxy had learned that true strength lies not in rigid perfection, but in the beautiful unpredictability of adaptive innovation.